Good morning or afternoon, everyone. My name is Jeremy Walsh, and I'm the Director of Support, Training, and Documentation for BNI Connect, and welcome to our 2013 webinar series. So we're trying something new here in 2013, and we're going to try to condense some of our webinars into about 30 minutes of content so that we can get on with our busy days and still learn a few things in the process. So today's webinar is dealing with the online slips and the referral tracking sheet in BNI Connect and how to do all these functions in BNI Connect. So we're going to go over how to enter a thank you for closed business slip, referral slips, one-to-one CEUs, and take a look at this referral tracking sheet as well. As I said, we've scheduled about 30 minutes for this webinar, although we will also hang out for as long as necessary to answer any questions as part of the webinar. This is a live webinar, so we do welcome your questions, comments, concerns about anything to do with BNI Connect. There is a questions interface which allows you to type your questions in as we're going along, or at the end of this webinar as well. There should be some time for those questions. So without further ado, unless there's any questions to start us off, we're going to take a tour of the online referral system. So here we are. You should be looking right now at my home screen in BNI Connect. Now, I am a member here in the Rhode Island region. I've been a member here for about 11 years, and I have to tell you, this is one of the most exciting updates to my membership that I've come across in my 11 years here. And again, that is the ability to take all those slips that we've traditionally been filling out during the meeting a lot of times when other people are giving their 60-second presentations or during the 10-minute presentation, and then passing them in at the meeting. We can now do that all ahead of time. We can do them in real time. We can do them as they happen out there in the real world. So how do we do that? Well, the first thing is you log into BNI Connect. Now, I'm actually, if you notice by the URL up here, I'm in our testing system right now, and the reason for that is simply that I don't want to mess up the numbers on my own account. But it all works the same way. You'll see a bunch of things on the screen, and some of them are new if you haven't logged into BNI Connect in a while. Up here, you'll see your My BNI Business Report. And what this is your activity in BNI over the past 12 months, the last 12 months, and your lifetime in BNI. Now, the numbers that are represented here in this section that I just highlighted in blue, those numbers change only when your POMS reports change. And these numbers will change regardless of whether you use the online slips or not. But they will only increment when your vice president enters the POMS reports on a weekly basis. So that's a very important distinction to make. So as you are entering online slips, you won't see these numbers change right away. They'll only change at the end of the week after your meeting, after your vice president has gone in, verified all the online slips, and then also entered any slips that may have been passed in on paper at the meeting. But this is a great indication of what's called our ROI in BNI. So what's your return on investment? You can have at quick glance exactly what's going on, how many referrals you've given, how many you've received, how many visitors you've brought to BNI, one-to-ones and CEUs, and you'll even notice there's a new field on here. And that is thank you for closed business received. So that's how much money has come into your business through BNI. Traditionally, we've only tracked the opposite end, and that is what you've given to other people. Now there is a way for us to track the money that you've received, and by the way, the only way this number is entered is by entering thank you for closed business through an online slip, and that keeps it confidential so that only you can see that particular piece of information. Only you can see this thank you for closed business slip received. So how does this whole process work? So after you've logged into BNI, you'll notice that you have a number of options down here. And the first four options are enter. Enter thank you for closed business, enter referrals, enter one-to-ones, and enter CEUs. And this is the way that we're going to pass an electronic slip. Let's take a look at the thank you for closed business slip first. If I click on Enter Thank You for Closed Business, this is going to pull up a new Thank You for Closed Business slip, and this should look pretty familiar. It's the exact same slip that we currently use in the meeting. I believe most regions, this should be a green piece of paper normally. Now you have couple of options. You're just going to first select somebody from your chapter. So there's a drop down here, and this will list all of the active members in your chapter. So let's say that I have a thank you for closed business for Frank Karpowitz. He's the architect in our chapter, and I'd like to thank him for a referral in the amount of $1,350. And it was a new piece of business. It was an outside referral. And I can even put comments in now. Now, nobody else besides you is going to see these comments. So it is okay to put a client name if you'd like to in there, or be descriptive about the type of business that you're thanking the person for. So I can put comments in and said, this was Bob Smith, and helped with his network. And they have three options down here. I can click on Save and New, which will save all of this information, submit it, and then immediately pull up another thank you for closed business slip. I can click on Submit, which would just enter this information, close it out, and bring us back to the screen we were on before. Or I can close this, which will just throw away all of this and bring us back to the previous screen. I'm going to click on Save and New, which will save that. It will submit it, and then it pulls up a new slip right away. Now, in some regions, you'll also see a second option here, and that is Search Cross-Chapter. And what this button is it allows me to give a thank you for closed business to somebody in another chapter within my region. So it might be the chapter I meet on Thursdays, maybe it's the chapter that meets in the same location on Tuesdays, or maybe it's somebody on the other side of the state that I'm thanking for closed business because I have a relationship with them in their chapter. Traditionally, this is very hard to do on a paper slip. It means that you have to go to their meeting and physically hand over a slip or call their vice president up on the phone and say, hey, I have a thank you for closed business for somebody in chapter, and maybe it just wasn't done at all. But now we can do this in BNI Connect. The way to do that is to click on the Search Cross-Chapter button. And let's say that there's somebody in my region, somebody in my industry that I have a relationship with. His name happens to be Joe Grimes. So let me see if I can find Joe. Now, all I need to do is put in a couple of letters. So you know what? I'm not sure if it's Joe or Joseph in the system. So I'm just going to put J-O in. And his last name is Grimes. I'm just going to put G-R in. And I click Search. And this is going to pull up all the matches within my region, which is all of Rhode Island and all of southeastern Massachusetts. Unfortunately, at this time, because not all regions are using the Search Cross-Chapter, I can't pass a referral or thank somebody in California or Nevada or Texas or Germany for that matter. Hopefully someday that will be the case, but right now we're limited just to the chapters within our own region. So I can see that it pulled up. Here's my first match here. It's Joe Grimes, and he is in the CityBiz chapter. So I am able to verify this information. And if I put a little mark in the button next to his name, this is going to select him. He's going to ask me if I'm sure. Yes, I'm sure. And now I can see that his name is showing up in the thank you. So thank you to Joe Grimes. And I'm going to thank him for a referral in the amount. And this was a $20,000 job that he referred to me. And it was an outside referral, and this was for a new startup business that we collaborated on. And I'm going to choose Submit because I don't have any other thank you for closed businesses to report at this time. And that's it. That's how easy it is to enter a thank you for closed business slip. Now, a couple of things are really cool that happen now in the system automatically. The first of which is if we have any vice presidents on the line, hopefully you'll be excited to hear this part of it, that information is automatically entered into the POMS report for you to review this week. So you don't have to tally a slip up at the end of the meeting. That information is automatically entered. And the more people in the chapter that utilize this functionality, the easier that tracking job is at the end of the week. So the other great thing that happens is that now you as a member can track the slips that you passed. Now, The thank you for closed business slip in a meeting is only a single piece of paper. So we hand that in and then it disappears and we never see it again. And because it's going on the other person's record in the POMS report, it makes it a little difficult to remember, oh, you know what? I'm just not sure if I ever thanked Joe for that business. Well, now we can track all of those online slips through the My Reports. And if you notice, there's a section down here that has a corresponding My Report for each one of the slip types. And here we have a My Thank You for Closed Business report. Now, I'm going to click on this report. And by default, it's going to give us the last 6 months of slips. Now, you can change this date. Let's say you only want to look at 1 month's worth or you want to look at 5 years' worth. Now, we've only had the slips program for a couple of months, so it probably doesn't make any sense to look back much further than October 29th. But in the future, a year down the line, 2 years down the line, 3 years down the line, you'll be able to backtrack and look at all of the online slips that you entered. I'm going to click Go, and what this will do is it'll show me all of the online slips that I've entered. And you can see that I have done a couple of webinars in this test system. So there was a couple of online slips that I entered on the 12th to Michael Katoya. And it also has the two that I just entered, one for Frank Karpowitz for $1,350 for Bob Smith, and one for Joe Grimes for $20,000 for a new startup business. So that way, maybe 6 months from now, Frank comes up to me and say, hey, remember that business that I passed you? I'm not sure if you ever passed him a thank you for closed business for that. I can go back and track that now. And again, that is something that unless you were keeping spreadsheets on the side, probably something you were never able to do before in BNI. This report also is able to be exported, so if you'd like to keep this in an Excel spreadsheet somewhere, you're more than welcome to do that. You can export it without headers or export it in the normal function, which would just be the difference whether it's going to include all this information up here at the top or not. So that's a thank you for closed business. The next thing that we can do is enter a referral online. And we do that by clicking on the Enter Referrals button up in the top section. What this is going to do is pull up a referral slip, and this is identical to the referral slip that we pass in the meeting. It has all the same fields on it. Again, the only difference is that it's not in triplicate and it's an electronic copy. So same thing as with the thank you for closed business. I can choose somebody from my chapter. So let's say that I have a referral for Larry Fish. Larry Fish is the dry cleaner that's in our chapter. And let's say that I'm referring him to my Aunt Judy. And she's going to be using him for dry cleaning now. He has an awesome pickup and delivery service if there's anybody on the call in the Rhode Island area. And I gave Aunt Judy his card and told him that he would call. And she lives at 1 Thayer Street in Warwick. The telephone number, the email address, and any comments. And this is a super hot referral, so I'm going to rate this a number 5 on the referral temperature scale. And then I can have the same options that I have with the thank you for closed business. If I have another referral that I'd like to put in right away, I can click Save and New. If I'd just like to submit this one and go back and go off and do something else, I can do that. Or I can close this if I say, oh, I really don't want to pass this one yet, and discard all of that information. I'm going to click Save and New because I have another referral that I'd like to pass. And it submitted that one. And now I have an option to enter a new one. And again, we have the same search cross-chapter available. Again, if the search cross-chapter button is not there, please do have a talk with your director consultant of your chapter or your executive director to find out when the cross-chapter option will be available in your region. So I'm going to click Search Cross-Chapter, and again, I can do a search for other members in my region. I met this person at a networking event. Her name was Linda, but I don't really remember what her last name was. I'm going to search for her. And here it is. It was Linda Macedonio. She is definitely interested in the services. And I can put in the information. And this was an outside referral, given the card, address information, telephone, email address, and any comments. And again, this is a little bit of a colder referral, so I'm going to do a tepid and submit. So we have now a couple of cool things that happen once you submit a referral. We do have a couple of questions. James, I will definitely pass that information on to the powers that be. And Laura says the audio keeps cutting out. I'm not sure if that's my internet connection or if something's going on. This webinar is being recorded, though, and I'll be made available later. The audio's cutting out as well. It may be bad on the recording, but I will definitely take a look into that issue for the next webinar. Thank you, James and Laura, for bringing that up. All right, so anyway, when you pass a referral, a couple of cool things happen. Again, vice presidents, that referral is now recorded into the POMS report for you. So as the giver of the referral, I'm going to get a referral given in my column, and whoever the recipient is gets it referral received, whether it was an inside or an outside. That way, that's, again, one less piece of information that you have to enter into the POMS report. And if anybody out there is not a vice president, entering the POMS report is a time-consuming process. You have to scroll up the list, okay, the referral giver, and put it into the given column, then you have to scroll down the list, find the other person, put it in the receive column. So this is a big time saver here, especially for referrals and one-to-ones. Now, the other thing that happens, though, is that the recipient of the referral automatically gets a notification email right away. This happens immediately. They get a notification email saying, you have just received a referral from Jeremy, or whoever the referral giver is. And here's what that referral receipt looks like. So this is an actual referral that I received a couple of weeks ago on December 27th. So I can see that the referral, the date was given, December 22nd. It was an outside referral. Somebody was given my card, and the person that gave it, I've received a referral from Christy Armstrong, a member of my chapter. She's a CPA. And this one was somewhat of a tepid referral, and it was Ernie and the phone number, and gave me some information about what was going on. And the cool thing is I do have the ability to contact Christy directly from this email. So this saves you a lot of effort of having to type out the information into any communications. It gets sent automatically, and again, it is immediate. It is sent within seconds of you hitting the OK button. And a third thing now happens is that the recipient of the referral, that referral will go into their referral tracking sheet. And this is brand new as of yesterday. So just to show you what that looks like now, once you receive a referral, it will go, again, into your referral tracking sheet. If I click on the referral tracking sheet, this will take me over. And just before this webinar, I sent myself a referral from somebody else in my chapter. And here it is. This is the referral that I received. So when I was sent this referral, I got the email about it, and then it showed up in my referral tracking sheet. And I can see the referral, I can see the status, and the cool thing is that now I can also track the status. So I'm going to click on the Edit button here, and here's all the information about the referral. So I can change the status from now this is pending because I contacted Bob Jones today, and I set up an appointment with him. Now, it turns out that this is actually a really hot referral, so I can change the temperature on it. I can, once we meet, I can track when we met. I can track when we followed up. I can put in, and this is for information purposes only, it's not attached to the POMS report, if thank you for closed business was generated, and I can save this. So again, that's for a received referral. And now, again, any referrals you send, rather than keeping stacks and stacks of those yellow receipts of referrals given, there is a My Referrals report. And the My Referrals report will list all the referrals that you have given. So these are the 2 referrals that I've given in the system, the one for Aunt Judy to Larry Fish and the one to Linda Macedonia for Brian Fish. Okay, so that covers the referrals. The next one is the one-to-ones. And the one-to-ones is done in the exact same fashion. So you just choose somebody from your chapter, or you can do a one-to-one with somebody in another chapter in your region. And you would select the person with the name. So let's say I did a one-to-one with Gary Ma. He is the website developer in my chapter. You can put who initiated the one-to-one if you'd like to. Where you met. Maybe we met at Applebee's to have a bite to eat while we talked. What were the topics of conversations? So maybe some new web technologies. And the date of the one-to-one. And we met on Friday of last week. Again, I have the Save and New or the Submit option. I'm going to do Save and New. The cool thing about the one-to-ones is similar to all of the others, it does get automatically entered into the POMS report. Now, what makes this one unique is that it gets entered into the POMS report for both people. So only one person of the one-to-one pair needs to enter the one-to-one into BNI Connect. So right before this webinar, I entered a one-to-one with Christy Armstrong as Christy Armstrong. So Christy had recorded that she did a one-to-one with me. Doesn't matter what's put in the location of the dot, but she had recorded that we did a one-to-one yesterday. Now, if I try to save this, it's going to tell me that there's already another one-to-one in the system. So there are some, so we don't have duplicate data entry, but only one person from the one-to-one needs to put that data entry in. So a new topic of conversation. Maybe you want to close out your one-to-ones with, oh, by the way, who's going to enter this in BNI Connect? And as with the other types, we have the My One-to-One report. And if I pull on the one-to-one report, we can see all the one-to-ones that have been entered in the system. Now, this also has another great benefit to it. Have you ever looked at somebody across the room and said, you know, I haven't received a referral from Joe for quite some time? Now you can go back and say, well, you know what? I haven't done a one-to-one with Joe in quite some time. That's probably why we're not passing as much business between each other as we should. So very easy to go back and really troubleshoot your relationships in your chapter as well by looking at the one-to-ones. So we do have a question here, a couple of questions. James says, what happens if both people enter the one-to-one? Again, there are some protections in the system so that as long as the person and the date matches, you can't really put in a duplicate one-to-one. It's going to give you that warning. If the two people end up putting in the one-to-one in with different dates, then yes, it is going to get duplicated in the system. So you would need to be careful of that. Let's see. Triggs asks, entering today a one-to-one from last month goes on to what month, this month, or last month? So the way that the slips work, and this goes for all of the slips, is that it is going to go into the POMS report for whatever meeting is next. So I meet on Thursdays, so if I put a one-to-one in today, even if it was for something that, let's say that I did a one-to-one 6 months ago, it's going to go into today's meeting. It's exactly the same as if you went to your meeting, or let's say that you missed a couple of meetings or you were on vacation and you turn in a whole handful of slips, it would go into that week's POMS report. It's the same way for the online slips. They're all going to go into that week's POMS reports. So hopefully that answers your question, Trig. So it's by entry date, not date of activity. So Michael asks about the door prize, and I'll get to that in just 1 second. So the next one is the CEUs, and the thing with the CEUs is that it does all the hard math for you. So as you're entering the CEU slips by the Enter CEU button, you'll notice that there's a different amount of credits per course. So depending on what I put in, let's say I'm going to do 2 of everything this week, spend a lot of hours on training this week. You'll see that I just need to put the quantity in, and it will do the calculation for me. So let's say I went to 2 workshops. They're worth 5 credits each. It will give me the appropriate credits. Once I click Submit, this will now go into the POMS report, and it will also go into the My CEU report. And we can see the slip that I just entered, and it shows the individual trainings that I took, the number of credits or the number of quantity, and the number of credits that I received. So Laura has a quick question with BNI Connect. Who gets the credit for the one-to-one? In BNI Connect, both people get the credit. So both people will get a 1 in their one-to-one column that particular week. Okay, so now let me get to Michael's question, which is, if sheets are entered online, how does a chapter handle door prize raffles, door prize drawings, as well as how do you handle the referral reality check that you might be doing in your chapter? The way to do that is there's also a report on here. You'll notice the bottom option is the personal meeting activity sheet. Now, the personal meeting activity sheet allows you to print out referral slips that you can drop into your bowl at your meeting. And let's take a look at what this looks like. So I'm going to click at the personal meeting activity sheet. You can see it's going to, by default, give you your last week's worth of activity, but let's say that you miss a couple of meetings. You can actually go back and choose a longer date range if you would like, and click Go. And you'll see that this is all the activity that I just entered this week. So my meeting's on Thursday. I'm going to print this out on Wednesday night before I go to my meeting. Now, it tells me here's the 2 referral slips, and they're the same size and shape as a regular referral slip. It tells me who it was to, who it was from, and who the referral was. Now, my referral source already has this information, so there's no need for me to have a triplicate copy. This is just going to go into the basket for the door prize and for the reality check. And also, I can announce. I don't need to pass a physical slip anymore for the thank you for closed business, the one-to-ones or the CEUs, but you still want to announce it at the meeting. This is a good, this is your time to stand up and talk about that stuff. It's impressive to visitors. It's impressive to the other people in the chapter. So I would stand up. I would drop my 2 cutout referral slips, and then I would say, I also entered online. I thank you to Frank for $13.50, Joe Grimes for $20,000, one-to-ones with Christy and Gary, and 42 CEUs this week. So all of that is there for you on this personal meeting activity sheet. Now, let's say that you don't have a printer at home, or you don't want to print it out, or you just flat out forget, and you show up to your meeting and say, oh man, I forgot to print out my slips. Just take a regular referral slip, fill it out. You don't even need to fill out all the information, just who it was to and who it was from. And now my suggestion is that you take that slip and you put a big X through it. Or you write on the slip in big bold letters, entered online. That way your vice president, when they come to that slip, when they're tallying up all the other paper slips for the people that haven't used BNI Connect yet, they can look at that slip and say, hey, you know what, I don't have to count this one. They can just put it aside knowing that it's already entered in BNI Connect. So Michael, does that answer your question there? All right. So just very, very quickly, we have 1 minute left. Let me show you what this looks like if we have any vice presidents on the line. If I was a vice president, when I go to enter my POMS report for this week, so that is for this week's meeting, which would be the 17th, and I click on Enter POMS. As a vice president, you'll see that all of the information that I just entered in the slips is already there. So here's the referral that Christy gave me, the one-to-one that Christy had with me. If I scroll down to my name here down at the bottom of the list, you'll see that it has the referrals given, the referrals received, the one-to-ones, the thank you for closed business, and the CEUs already filled out. And if you're curious which slips have been passed, there's the slips audit report, so that you can verify all of the slips that were passed in the meeting. That way you have a tally of an audit, a balance sheet between the paper slips and the physical slips that were passed. Excellent. So that wraps up the content portion of this. I do want to stay true to our 30 minutes. I would like to thank everybody for their time today. I will hang out for questions if anybody has any additional questions, but I would like to thank everybody for their time today, those that need to leave the webinar. If you would like, this webinar will be uploaded within the next week or so to our YouTube channel, BNI Connect, youtube.com/BNI Connect. Please join us on our support site as well, support.BNI Connect. So as far as questions go, we do have a couple more questions, and as I said, I will be happy to hang out as long as people have valid questions. Laura says, tell us a little bit more about what qualifies as a CEU. Laura, I'm going to preempt this with please speak with your director consultant or your executive director for more information about how CEUs are calculated in your region. I can tell you how they're calculated in my region, and the way that we do is really based on the CEU slip itself. So what you'll see here is there's different areas for CEUs, and CEUs is just continuing education like they have in many other areas of business. You can see here that they roughly relate to hours. So there is no possible way to fit on this slip every single thing that you could possibly do to educate yourself. So in our region, and again, please speak with your director or your executive director first, but for example, we would enter, there's nothing for webinar in here, but we would enter the webinar as a 1-credit course. So we would just choose either the BNI CD or the 5 podcasts and enter a 1 quantity in there for something like a webinar. Something like a networking event, again, we might enter that in as either a 2-credit or a 3-credit, depending on the length of it. So, but again, please check with your region to see how they calculate CEUs in your region. Members in our region, yes, they would get a 1 credit for today's presentation. James says, in the UK, BNI has 11 training events per year in our region, but our membership is more expensive than in the U.S. So again, there are some local differences between the United States and other regions. So, do we have any additional questions? Happy to answer any questions that you might have. Steve says, what event generates the system POMS report? So I think you're asking, when does that draft POMS report first show up, Steve? So if that is your question, the draft POMS report will show up as soon as the first person enters a slip. So as soon as the very first slip is entered into BNI Connect, a draft is created with that tally information, or when the first visitor is entered. So as you know, visitors actually go into next week's meeting. So if a visitor was entered or a slip was entered, the very first time that's done, that's when the draft is created. That answer your question, Steve? Excellent. Do we have any other questions today? All right, Michael says, if I gave a slip for thank you for closed business today and I want to enter for online tracking, can I do that without duplicating? So if I gave a slip for thank you for closed business today and I want to enter for online tracking, can I do that without duplicating? So are you, Michael, I'm not sure if you're referring to previous thank you for closed business that may have happened all the way in the past, or if you might not, Michael, just based on your name, am I correct that you're calling in from Germany and you're not using the online slips quite yet? Okay, so in Boston, you can enter the slips whenever you'd like to. It is just going to go into that POMS report. I'm not sure what you mean by duplicating. Meaning maybe you've already entered it as a paper slip, but you'd like to show up in your received. Is that what you're referring to? Okay, so if you already passed a paper slip this morning, what you probably want to do is call your vice president and say, hey, tear up that slip. The other thing that you can do is that you can, some places they want to show up in the thank you for closed business received. What you can do is enter the slip in and then ask your vice president to remove it from the POMS report the following week. It does have to be a manual process at that point, if that makes sense. All right. Trig had said, I know one-to-ones were sent in last month. Yep, again, yes, you have it right. You do have to check with your VP on that. So, and just to clarify, all of the My Reports, they will only populate with online slips. So there's no way a vice president is going to enter all of that detailed information for 20, 30, 40, 50 people in a chapter. Laura says, will we know who gave us the thank you for closed business? Absolutely not. The giver is anonymous, and this is done for security reasons. There are a lot of professions out there. Just a couple might be financial advisors, lawyers, doctors, therapists that basically don't want to reveal their client information, and putting their name attached with your name could be a breach of confidentiality. So they do, it is an anonymous thing, similar to how the paper slips are done now. So unless they announce it at the meeting or they come up to you personally and tell you, you wouldn't know who gave it to you. Does that make sense, Laura? Trig says, so paper slips will not show up on the online report. Paper slips will only show up, they will show up here in the top section because this is just the POMS report condensed with your numbers, but they will not show up in any of the My Reports. Those are your reports for the online slips that you've passed. James says, do you announce in your meeting, thank you for business, naming the member? In our chapter, yes, we do. Although there are lawyers in our chapter. We have 3 or 4 lawyers in our chapter. But the lawyers, they don't announce them. They do pass them in, but they don't announce them for confidentiality reasons. But that is a choice at your point, whether or not you feel it is a confidential thing or not, whether you would like to announce it. Does that answer your question, James? Excellent. I think I've answered all the questions so far. Do we have any additional questions? Could be about the slips or anything else you'd like to ask about. Again, if not, I'd like to thank everybody for your time today. Please do, if I could ask for a good referral for me, please go back to your chapters. Go back to your chapters, tell them about this, and please tell them about these webinars, this whole webinar series. I'd love to get more attendance on the webinars, and the best way to do that is through word of mouth. So please go back to your chapters, let them know to sign up for these webinars and join us. We have 2 to 3 webinars every week on various topics. And again, they're all a half-hour webinar series now, which is a little bit easier to schedule than the 1 hours. Thank you for your time today. Join us on facebook.com/BNI Connect Global, youtube.com/BNI Connect Global. Oh, hold on. Stop the presses. I think we have another question from Laura. Laura, did you have another question? Excellent. I can hold out for a minute. Laura says, do members have to be registered to go to the webinar? They don't need to be registered in BNI Connect, but you do have to click on the link to register with GoToWebinar in order to get the link for the webinar itself to be able to sign into the webinar. So these webinars, you can get the links in a couple of different places. One place to go is support.bniconnect.com, which you can also get to by clicking on this little question mark in the upper right-hand corner. And here are the links. These are the registration links to register for the webinar. So they're all unique. In order to get to the webinar, you can do that. The other place that they can go to is your regional event calendar. So every region has their own regional website. Mine happens to be bniri.com. Wherever you might be from, you will have your own regional website. And on there is your event calendar that has all of the events for your region, webinars as well as networking events and chapter events and things like that. They can, for example, we have, let's see, on Tuesday of next week, we have one on social media, and they can click the registration link within that webinar as well in order to get to register for that event. So hopefully that answers your question, Laura. Steve, the BNI Connect URL should be refreshed the very next time you click on it. All right. Do we have any other questions? Any other questions at all? Okay, well, once again, I'd like to thank everybody for their time, and I look forward to seeing you a week from today, 7 a.m. Pacific, 10 a.m. Eastern. This is a very early one, partially to accommodate our European audience who may be able to join us for earlier webinars. It will be on social media, connections, groups, testimonials, and more. So I look forward to seeing you all soon. Happy connecting, everyone. Have a great day.